The definition of success is, in many respects, how well you sleep at night. Because it all sort of boils down to, what do you feel like inside when you go home? You know, and if you go home content and happy, and no money in the world is ever going to change that, either good or bad. Well, I was born in Budapest, Hungary, in 1950. Lived there until 1956, December of 1956, we left. After World War II, the Russians began to take over the Eastern European bloc countries, and they created what was known as the Iron Curtain. And all of those countries, including Hungary, which is where I was from, communism was imposed on them by Russia, and they put in communist leadership. And my father, who had fought in the military in World War II, resigned once the communist regime took over, and an underground began to develop. And my father was very, very much involved in the underground to try to overthrow the Russian government and bring in democracy. And then in October of 1956, the underground, the protests erupted, and there was a revolution, and my father was involved in it. And so he kind of became a hunted man. I had two brothers and my mother. The four of us had to go into hiding. And so every 6 weeks or so, we would go from one shelter to another, underground shelters, to avoid the fighting in the streets and then to not be found. At the end of October or November sometime, the Russians just came in and just annihilated the town and the people. And so we had to get out of the country because they were hunting for my father, since the communists had won. One night, we get driven to a small town on the outskirts of the country, and then we just start walking in the middle of the night. Obviously, at the time I didn't know it, but we were escaping into Austria. Unfortunately, my father had lost everything financially. And so since he was working with the underground, he was offered, he also was working with the CIA in the United States, he was offered a significant amount of money to go back and do some things before we were moved on to the United States. Unfortunately, when he went back, he got captured. Now, he had made arrangements for us to be sent on if something happened to him. And so about a week later, we were sent on to the United States, and then he was taken off to Russia, tried, and executed as a traitor. At the time, we didn't know what happened to him, except that there was some sort of a mock trial. He was found guilty and shot. Our sponsors withdrew their sponsorship, and so we had to live. That's why we had to live in the camp in New Jersey, a military camp. After about 9 months there, we were placed by the Catholic Church, sponsored us, and we were put into a housing project in Newark. But it was a really tough neighborhood. You know, it's a housing project. Everybody's poor. The crime rate's high, and so it wasn't a great place to live. We had different kind of jobs, and on Saturdays. Back then, you don't see it anymore, but back then you had a little box with shoe polish and all those things you needed, and you went shoe shining. I'm not sure psychologically how this works, but I have an older brother who went through the same thing, and he's unbelievably risk averse. He won't take risk for any reason. He just wanted a paycheck, he wanted a job, a paycheck, security, no bills, and I went the other way. I kind of like risk. I take chances. So I don't know, what happens, but that's just the way I went.
Did it affect you differently?
Completely opposite, yeah. As you go up, you make a lot of money, and you become well-to-do, and it makes no difference at all. It just. What do you feel like when you walk in the door of your house? Without a doubt, is the definition of success.